Commander Velthar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking down at the small blue planet below. He felt proud and sure of himself. His fleet had 200 powerful ships, each one filled with the best soldiers in the galaxy. They had taken over 53 different worlds, and not one had given them real trouble. The reports about this planet called Earth said the same thing. Weak creatures with old technology who barely knew how to fly in space. But Commander Velthar didn't know that far below on Earth's moon, Captain Kim Tae-ho was watching every move the alien fleet made. Kim had been a soldier for 20 years. His face showed the marks of many battles, but his eyes were calm and steady. He sat in Luna Base, a secret military station hidden on the dark side of the moon that the aliens hadn't found yet. All around Kim, his team worked quietly and smoothly. Lieutenant Park Ji-woo checked the long-range sensors, watching the alien ships move into attack positions. Sergeant Lee Da-eun coordinated with Earth's defense networks, making sure everything was ready. They all knew this day would come. They had been preparing for it for a very long time. What Velthar saw as a normal, easy invasion was actually the start of humanity's greatest test. But humans had been getting ready for this test in ways the aliens could never imagine. While Velthar thought he was surprising a weak planet, the truth was that Earth had been watching his people for years through deep space telescopes and captured alien technology from small scout ships that had visited the solar system before. Down on Earth, something amazing was happening that Velthar couldn't see from space. Entire cities were becoming empty, but not because people were running away in fear. Instead, millions of people were moving through underground tunnels and hidden passages that had been built over many years. These weren't just simple subway tunnels. They were part of a huge network that connected every major city on the planet. Families like the Park family from Seoul moved calmly through these tunnels, carrying small bags with their most important things. Children like young Lee Min-ji walked hand in hand with their grandparents, following signs that led to safe underground cities that had food, water, and everything needed to live for months. This wasn't panic. This was a plan that had been practiced many times. The aliens thought they were seeing a primitive world, but they were actually looking at the most prepared planet in the galaxy. Every human knew their role. Every city had backup plans. Every family knew where to go and what to do. This level of organization came from something the aliens didn't understand. Humans had been fighting and surviving on their dangerous planet for thousands of years. When Velthar decided to show his power, he chose a large military base and fired one of his strongest plasma weapons at it. The base exploded in a huge ball of fire that could be seen from space. Velthar smiled, thinking this would make the humans scared and ready to give up. But Captain Kim Tae-ho just nodded when he saw the explosion. He had been waiting for this moment. The base that was destroyed had been empty for 3 days. All the important equipment had been moved to secret locations. All the soldiers had been reassigned to hidden positions. The aliens had just wasted their best weapon on an empty building, and now Kim knew exactly how powerful their plasma technology was. Kim opened a communication channel to Admiral Choi Min-ho, who was commanding Earth's defense from a secret bunker deep underground. "Phase 1 complete," Kim said in a calm voice. "They've shown us their hand." This simple message meant that the first part of humanity's plan had worked perfectly. The aliens had revealed their main weapon, and now Earth's scientists and military planners knew exactly what they were dealing with. After destroying the base, Velthar sent a message to Earth demanding complete surrender within 24 hours. He expected the humans to respond with fear, begging, or desperate attempts to negotiate. Instead, he got complete silence. No response at all. This confused him because he didn't understand that humans weren't ignoring him because they were too scared to answer. They were silent because they were too busy preparing their real response, a response that would change everything Velthar thought he knew about warfare and about the small blue planet he thought would be so easy to conquer. When the sun came up over Earth's major cities, Commander Velthar gave the order to begin the invasion. Thousands of alien drop pods fell from the sky like metal rain, each one carrying elite Dominion soldiers who had never lost a battle. These weren't ordinary troops. They were genetically enhanced warriors with advanced armor and plasma weapons. that could melt through steel like butter. But as the first alien soldiers stepped out of their smoking pods, they found something that shocked them completely. The humans weren't running around screaming or hiding in their homes like scared animals. Instead, they walked into perfectly prepared killing zones where every window, every doorway, and every corner had been turned into a firing position. Corporal Han Soo-jin crouched behind a reinforced concrete barrier on the roof of an apartment building in Seoul. For 3 long years, she had studied every piece of alien communication that Earth's intelligence services had intercepted. She knew how Dominion soldiers moved, how they attacked, and most importantly, how they thought. When the first squad of aliens came down her street in their standard formation, she was ready for them. The aliens expected to face humans with simple metal bullets and crude explosives. Instead, Han Soo-jin's team hit them with weapons that had been specifically designed to punch through alien armor. The Dominion soldiers' energy shields flickered and died under the focused fire. These weren't primitive weapons. They were the result of years of studying captured alien technology and improving upon it. 3 blocks away, Private Yoon Ji-ho led his squad through Seoul's massive subway system. But they weren't using the trains to escape. Instead, they were using the underground tunnels to move around the city without being seen by the alien ships overhead. The subway had been modified over the past few years with hidden passages, weapon storage rooms, and communication centers that let human forces coordinate their attacks. Yoon's squad popped up from a subway entrance right behind a group of alien soldiers who thought they had secured a city block. The aliens were looking forward, watching for human defenders in the buildings ahead of them. They never expected an attack from underground, from behind their own lines. By the time they realized what was happening, half of their squad was already down. This wasn't luck or accident. Every human soldier had practiced these exact movements dozens of times in training exercises. They knew every tunnel, every hidden entrance, and every escape route in their city. The aliens might have superior technology, but the humans had something even more valuable. They knew their own home better than anyone else possibly could. Sergeant Kang Hye-jin coordinated the battle from a command center hidden beneath a hospital in downtown Seoul. On her screens, she could see the movement of both human and alien forces throughout the city. What looked like civilian evacuation routes to the aliens were actually carefully planned ambush corridors. When alien soldiers followed what they thought were fleeing civilians, they found themselves walking into traps that had been months in the making. The genius of the human strategy was that everything served 2 purposes. The same tunnels that helped civilians escape to safety also allowed soldiers to move unseen. The same buildings that protected families also became fortified positions. The same communication networks that coordinated evacuations also directed military operations. The aliens were fighting not just human soldiers, but an entire city that had been turned into one massive weapon. Up in his command ship, Velthar stared at his casualty reports with growing disbelief. In the first 6 hours of the invasion, he had lost more soldiers than in the conquest of the previous 5 planets combined. These weren't desperate last stands by cornered enemies. These were carefully planned military operations that seemed to anticipate his every move. The situation got even worse when his troops started capturing human prisoners. Lieutenant O. Jung-woo was brought before Velthar for interrogation after being captured during a fierce firefight. But instead of showing fear or desperation, the human officer seemed genuinely amused by the whole situation. "Is this really the best the galaxy has to offer?" Oh Sung-woo asked with a slight smile when Velthar tried to intimidate him. "We've been preparing for tougher opponents than this." The human's casual confidence was more disturbing than any amount of screaming or begging would have been. Other captured humans showed the same strange attitude. They didn't act like defeated enemies. Instead, they seemed curious about their captors, asking questions about Dominion technology and tactics like students taking notes in a classroom. Some even offered helpful suggestions for how the aliens could improve their invasion strategy. By the end of the first day, Velthar realized something that chilled him to his core. The humans weren't just fighting back against impossible odds. They were actually winning. His technologically superior force was being systematically dismantled by opponents who should have been no match for them. Every standard Dominion tactic had been countered, every advantage neutralized and every assumption proven wrong. The invasion that was supposed to end in hours was turning into something Velthar had never experienced before. A fair fight. And the humans seemed to be enjoying every minute of it. By the time the third day of the invasion arrived, Velthar could barely believe what he was seeing in his reports. Half of his mighty fleet was gone. Ships that had survived battles across 50 different worlds were now floating debris around Earth's orbit. But what made everything worse was that the humans weren't fighting like any enemy the Dominion had ever faced before. The aliens had expected to fight human soldiers with guns and tanks. Instead, they discovered that humans had turned everything on their planet into a weapon, even things that seemed completely harmless. Dr. Lim Yu-jin worked from a weather control station hidden deep in the mountains of Korea. She wasn't a soldier, and had never fired a gun in her life, but she was one of Earth's most dangerous weapons. For the past 2 years, she had been studying how to control weather patterns using technology that combined human science with captured alien equipment. When Dominion forces landed near the city of Busan, Dr. Lim created a massive thunderstorm right above them. But this wasn't just any storm. She had learned how to direct lightning strikes with perfect accuracy. Alien soldiers wearing metal armor found themselves being struck by lightning bolt after lightning bolt, as if the sky itself was targeting them personally. The storm lasted for 6 hours, and when it finally cleared, an entire Dominion battalion had been wiped out without a single human soldier firing a shot. The aliens couldn't understand how humans could control the weather itself, but Dr. Lim just smiled as she prepared her next storm system. Meanwhile, in a secret laboratory beneath Seoul, biologist Park So-young was working on something even more frightening. She had spent years studying alien biology from captured soldiers and crashed ships. Now she was ready to use that knowledge in the most terrifying way possible. Park So-young had created tiny organisms, so small they couldn't be seen without special equipment, that were designed to attack only alien bodies. These microscopic weapons spread through the air like invisible clouds, but they were completely harmless to humans and Earth animals. For aliens, however, they caused a sickness that made their advanced armor and weapons useless as the soldiers became too weak to fight. Entire alien units began collapsing without understanding why. Their medical officers couldn't figure out what was making their troops sick, because they had never encountered biological warfare designed specifically for their species. Park So-young had turned Earth's own life forms into soldiers that fought at a level smaller than the eye could see. But the moment that truly broke Commander Velthar's understanding of warfare came when he saw something that should have been impossible. His flagship, the largest and most powerful ship in the Dominion fleet, was suddenly under attack, but not from human military vessels. Medical officer Kim Da-sam piloted a hospital transport ship straight toward Velthar's flagship. This wasn't a warship. It was painted with red crosses and was supposed to be used for helping injured people. By all the rules of galactic warfare, hospital ships were never supposed to be attacked or used as weapons. But as the transport ship got closer, Velthar realized that Kim Da-sam wasn't trying to surrender or ask for help. The hospital ship was moving too fast and heading directly for his flagship's main engines. Inside the transport, Kim Da-sam was joined by dozens of volunteer patients, people who were already sick or injured but had chosen to join this final mission. As the hospital ship crashed into the flagship, Velthar could hear something through the radio that would haunt him forever. The humans inside were singing traditional Korean folk songs as their ship burned and exploded. They weren't screaming in fear or crying for help. They were singing beautiful sad songs about their homeland as they died. The tactical impossibility of using a medical vessel as a weapon completely shattered everything the Dominion understood about how wars were supposed to work. In their culture, medical officers were healers who stayed away from fighting. But humans had turned even their doctors and patients into warriors who could destroy the most powerful ships in the galaxy. Down on Earth's surface, Captain Lee Jun-ho sent reports that made the situation even more disturbing. The human civilians weren't acting like normal non-combatants who tried to stay safe during battles. Instead, they were fighting with the same deadly efficiency as trained soldiers. Young Kim Min-seo was only 12 years old, but she had spent months learning the layout of her city and studying alien patrol patterns. When Dominion soldiers came through her neighborhood, she pretended to be a scared child running away. The aliens followed her, thinking they were chasing a helpless victim. Instead, she led them directly into a trap where human soldiers were, waiting with weapons that could destroy alien armor. Even more shocking were the elderly citizens who seemed like harmless grandparents, but were actually operating sophisticated technical equipment. These older humans would approach captured alien vehicles pretending to be curious civilians. But they were actually installing devices that let human forces control the alien machines remotely, turning the invaders' own tanks and aircraft into weapons against them. Commander Velthar finally understood the horrible truth. The humans hadn't just turned their military into a weapon. They had turned their entire planet into one massive coordinated weapon system, where every person, every animal, every piece of technology, and even the weather itself was part of one giant war machine designed to destroy invaders. This wasn't conquest anymore. This was survival against a species that had made warfare into an art form. As Commander Velthar watched his invasion crumble around him, desperation drove him to do something he had never needed to do before in 53 successful conquests. He ordered his technical teams to break into human computer systems to try to understand how these seemingly primitive creatures had defeated his advanced military force. What his officers found in Earth's data archives changed everything. Velthar thought he knew about the universe and about the species he had so foolishly decided to attack. The first files his team accessed were historical records compiled by Professor Jung Hai Wan, one of Earth's leading historians. As Velthar read through these documents, his blood grew cold. The humans weren't peaceful creatures who had recently discovered space travel. They were the survivors of the most violent and dangerous planet anyone had ever documented. The files showed that humans had been fighting massive wars for thousands of years, conflicts that made the largest galactic battles look like small disagreements between neighbors. One human war called World War II had involved over 100 million people and lasted for 6 years. The weapons they used were so destructive that they could wipe entire cities off the map in seconds. But what truly terrified Velthar was learning that this wasn't even the worst war humans had fought. They had been constantly at war with each other throughout their entire history, always finding new and more creative ways to kill their enemies. Every generation of humans had faced conflicts that would have destroyed weaker species completely. Even more shocking was discovering that humans had survived multiple ice ages, periods when their entire planet became so cold that most life died out. Other species would have given up and gone extinct, but humans had adapted, learned, and grown stronger. They had survived when their planet tried to freeze them to death, and they had done it through pure determination and clever thinking. Professor Jung Hae-won's research revealed that humans had never stopped improving their technology. But unlike other peaceful species who developed science to make life better, humans had always been driven by the need to survive against enemies who wanted to kill them. Every invention, every discovery, every advancement had been tested in the fire of actual combat. But the most disturbing discovery came when Velthar's team accessed classified military files compiled by intelligence officer Seo Min-kyung. These secret documents revealed a truth that made Velthar's invasion seem not just foolish, but almost laughably naive. Humans had been expanding through space for much longer than anyone in the galaxy realized. They hadn't just recently developed space travel. They had been quietly exploring nearby star systems for decades, building hidden bases and studying every alien species they encountered. Officer Seo Min-kyung's reports showed that Earth had detected the Dominion fleet more than 3 years before the invasion began. They had tracked Velthar's ships through deep space, analyzed their technology, studied their tactics, and prepared countermeasures for every possible attack strategy. The humans hadn't been caught by surprise at all. They had been waiting, watching, and preparing for this exact moment for years. Every response that Velthar had interpreted as primitive or desperate had actually been carefully calculated to gather information about Dominion capabilities, while revealing as little as possible about human strength. When his ships had first approached Earth and the humans had sent out their crude rockets. Those weren't desperate defense attempts. They were reconnaissance missions designed to get close enough to scan alien technology. The empty military base that Velthar had destroyed, to demonstrate his power, hadn't been evacuated because humans were scared. It had been cleared because they wanted to see exactly how powerful Dominion plasma weapons were and how they worked. Every human response had been a test designed to learn more about their enemies. Even more chilling was learning that Earth's intelligence services had been monitoring dozens of other alien civilizations throughout the galaxy. Humans had detailed files on every major species, including complete analyses of their military capabilities, political structures, and potential weaknesses. The humans weren't just defending their home planet. They were evaluating the entire galaxy to determine which species might be threats and which might be useful allies. Velthar's invasion hadn't been a surprise attack on a primitive world. It had been a job interview, and the Dominion had failed miserably. Officer Seo Min Kyung's most classified report revealed that Earth had already identified 47 other worlds that posed potential threats to human expansion. They had detailed invasion plans for each one, along with complete intelligence profiles of their military forces and defensive capabilities. The terrifying realization hit Velthar like a physical blow. Earth wasn't a primitive planet that humans were trying to protect from alien invasion. Earth was the home base of a species that had been quietly preparing to expand across the galaxy, and they had been using conflicts like this invasion to test their military capabilities and gather intelligence about potential enemies. Humans hadn't just survived their hostile planet. They had become the most dangerous predatory species in known space. And now they knew everything about the Dominion's military, while the Dominion knew almost nothing about humanity's true capabilities. The invasion hadn't just failed. It had been a complete intelligence disaster that had given Earth everything they needed to plan their own expansion into Dominion territory. Velthar finally understood that he hadn't attacked a primitive world. He had poked a sleeping dragon that was now wide awake and very interested in meeting the rest of the galaxy. When the smoke finally cleared around Earth's orbit, Commander Velthar counted his remaining ships with a sick feeling in his stomach. Out of the mighty 200-vessel armada that had approached Earth with such confidence, only 16 ships remained functional enough to make the journey back to Dominion space. Less than 8% of his force had survived what was supposed to be a simple conquest of a primitive world. The survivors who made it back to Dominion territory carried stories that nobody wanted to believe. They spoke of humans who had turned their entire planet into a weapon, of civilians who fought like seasoned warriors, and of military tactics so creative and brutal that they defied everything the galaxy understood about warfare. But the most disturbing part of their stories wasn't about the fighting itself. It was about how the humans had treated the entire invasion like it was just a practice session. Captured Dominion soldiers reported that human officers had seemed genuinely interested in learning about alien technology and tactics, as if they were students taking notes during a particularly interesting class. The survivors told their commanders that humans had been asking questions during the battle. Not desperate pleas for mercy, but curious inquiries about how Dominion weapons worked, and whether this invasion represented the best military effort the aliens could manage. It was as if the humans had been using the war as a training exercise to prepare for bigger challenges. These stories spread through Dominion space like wildfire, and from there they jumped to other alien civilizations throughout the galaxy. Within weeks, every major species had heard about the mysterious humans who had destroyed the galaxy's most successful military force, and then asked if that was really the best their enemies could do. 3 months after the failed invasion, a message arrived at the Dominion capital that changed everything. It came through official diplomatic channels and was signed by Ambassador Park Chan-woo, representing something called the United Earth Government. The message was polite but absolutely clear in its demands. The Dominion would immediately withdraw all military forces from 12 star systems that Earth now claimed as part of human territory. They would pay war reparations for the damage caused during their failed invasion. And they would formally recognize humanity's right to expand into any systems they chose to claim. The alternative wasn't directly stated, but everyone understood the implication. The message included detailed star charts showing the exact locations of 46 major Dominion worlds, along with complete intelligence profiles of their defensive capabilities. The humans weren't just making demands, they were demonstrating that they had the knowledge and ability to visit every important Dominion planet whenever they chose to do so. Commander Velthar, who had been stripped of his military rank after the disaster at Earth, found himself reassigned as a diplomatic liaison, essentially a translator between the Dominion leadership and the humans they now had to negotiate with. It was a humiliating position for someone who had once commanded the galaxy's most feared military force. When the first human delegation arrived at the Dominion capital, Velthar watched from the observation deck as their ships approached the space station. What he saw made his blood run cold. The humans hadn't come in warships designed to intimidate their former enemies. Instead, they arrived in vessels that looked exactly like the hospital transport that had crashed into his flagship and destroyed. The symbolism was unmistakable. These weren't military vessels, they were rescue ships, medical transports, and civilian craft that had been converted into weapons of war. The humans were showing the entire galaxy that they could turn anything, even ships designed to save lives, into tools of destruction. The human delegation was led by Admiral Choi Min-ho, a calm older man who had apparently coordinated Earth's defense during the invasion, and diplomat Lee So-ra, a woman whose friendly smile somehow made her seem more dangerous than any weapon. Their message to the Dominion leadership was simple and direct. Humanity wanted to join the galactic community as equal partners, not as conquerors. They were offering to share their expertise in what they politely called conflict resolution and survival strategies. But everyone in the room understood what those words really meant. The humans were interviewing the galaxy, deciding which species would make useful allies and which ones might need to be dealt with as potential threats. They weren't asking for permission to expand. They were informing the galaxy that human expansion had already begun. Lee So-ra explained that Earth was interested in establishing peaceful relationships with civilizations that could demonstrate their value as partners. They were particularly interested in species that had useful technologies, strategic resources, or cultural knowledge that might benefit humanity's growing interstellar community. The subtext was crystal clear. Species that proved themselves useful would be offered alliance and protection. Species that proved themselves threatening would be visited by the same forces that had destroyed the Dominion's invasion fleet. Within a year, the Dominion's 1,000-year period of galactic expansion came to an end. Not through military defeat, in a traditional sense, but through the realization that they had encountered a species that was simply better at warfare than they were. The humans had turned the invasion into a recruitment opportunity, using the conflict to demonstrate their capabilities while gathering intelligence about potential allies and enemies throughout the galaxy. The most chilling aspect of humanity's victory was how routine they had made it seem. Other species began to realize that the humans had been holding back during the invasion, treating the entire war as a training exercise for their younger soldiers. The full capabilities of human, military technology and tactics remained unknown, which made them even more frightening. The age of human expansion had officially begun, and every species in the galaxy suddenly found themselves wondering the same question. When the humans came to visit their worlds, would they be offering alliance or demonstrating why resistance was futile? Applications for partnership with Earth were now being accepted, and the galaxy was learning that it was better to be humanity's friend than their enemy.